I went on my first hunt just last year, and I can tell you that it was one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had. I have another trip planned in a couple of weeks, and I already know it's going to push me and it's going to expand me in new ways as a man. Although I wouldn't call myself a hunter just yet, I am learning and inspired by men like my friend and guest today, Adam Greentree. He's been hunting in Australia for most of his life, and I really wanted to get his perspective because it's one we just don't hear a lot of. Today we talk about why adventure is so important in the lives of men, developing an open mind to new ideas and experiences, knowing what battles to fight and when to make a stand, and how hunting can make you a better man.
You're a man of action. You live life to the fullest, embrace your fears, and boldly chart your own path. When life knocks you down, you get back up one more time, every time. You are not easily deterred or defeated. Rugged, resilient, strong. This is your life. This is who you are. This is who you will become. At the end of the day, and after all is said and done, you can call yourself a man.
Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler, and I am the host and founder of this podcast, The Order of Man. I want to welcome you to the show, whether you're just tuning in for the first time or you've been listening for almost 3 years. And on that note, I've got to say I'm absolutely blown away with the level of support and the growth that we're seeing here in Order of Man and the messages. Guys, I get messages every single day on Instagram and Facebook and in my inbox and email from those of you who are growing, expanding, connecting with your families, building your businesses, growing your bank accounts, losing weight. I mean, doing all the things that we've been talking about for years. And when I get messages like that, it reminds me why we're doing this podcast, why we are engaged in this movement. And it is a movement, guys. Millions and millions of men across the planet are tuning in, they're banding with us, and we need more guys in the fight. We need more men who understand what it means to actually be a man. We need more men who want to bestow that masculinity upon our boys. And quite honestly, we as men and our boys, the youth, are just not getting the message that we need, and we're not getting the experience that we need. And that's what this movement is all about. So, with that said, I want to thank you for joining me. Again, we need all of us to be engaged in this process, and this is just one very simple way to do it. So if you would, make sure you share the podcast. All right, if you haven't shared it, you guys are getting value from the podcast, I'm sure, otherwise you wouldn't be here, but just share it. Go ahead and share with a friend, a brother, a colleague, a neighbor, a coworker, whoever it may be that needs to hear the message of genuine masculinity and how to reclaim this masculinity in our lives for ourselves, our families, our businesses, and our communities. And if you would also make sure you leave us a rating and review, because that goes a long way. Whether you realize it or not, I read every single one of those, but that goes a long, long way in expanding the reach and moving us up the charts in the podcast so we can get in front of more men. Now, I do have a couple quick announcements before we get into the meat of the conversation today. Number one, our digital brotherhood. It's called the Iron Council. Guys, this is a collection of 360 men. We are working together. We're having conversations. We're going through some challenges. We're completing assignments. We're having virtual calls every single week. And this is a group dedicated to improving our lives. So pick an area of your life, whether that's building strength, or maybe you want to go run a marathon later in the year. Maybe you're starting a business. You might want to connect with your wife or re-establish a relationship with your children. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like for you. Again, I hear and get messages every single day with some of the battles that you guys are going through. And I'll tell you what, men are just not meant to go at it alone. We're not. And I think those of us who do attempt to go at it alone produce significantly less results than those men who find a band of brothers. So if you have somebody locally, great. I'd be willing to bet that most of the men listening don't have what they would call a band of brothers. And I can't really imagine or think of a better place than inside of the Iron Council, because we've got the system and the tools and the structure to make sure that this thing really works for you and the rest of the men inside the Iron Council. So if you're interested in learning more, knowing what it's all about, head to orderofman.com/Iron Council. Now, outside of that, I've just got to give you a couple of quick disclaimers here. I did title this, How Hunting Makes You a Better Man. All right, now, please understand me, because I know I'm going to get some pushback on this. I don't believe that every single man out there needs to be a hunter in order to call himself a quote-unquote man. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is there's some skills and there's some tools and there's some experiences inside the practice of hunting that will enhance your ability to protect, provide, and preside. Now, whether you do it or not, that's entirely up to you. But I ask that you go into this conversation with an open mind and think about how this experience might help you perform a little bit better as a man. Whether you decide to take that information and apply it, that's entirely up to you. The other thing I want to make mention of, the audio is a little off on this one. All right, you got to give me a break though, because Adam is in Australia. I'm here in the United States. We're across the planet from each other, but the audio is a little rough. It's okay. Hang in there because there's some valuable information in here. And on that note, I'm just going to jump right into introducing my friend, Adam Greentree. For those of you who don't know, and I know a lot of you guys follow him, he's an avid bow hunter. He's in Australia. I just mentioned that. He's the host of the Bow Hunter's Life podcast and is somebody that I really admire and respect for a lot of reasons, but specifically his dedication to his craft and his quest for mastery when it comes to all things bow hunting. I've learned so much from this guy in a very short period of time, and he's inspired me to live a life of more adventure and to pick up a bow. A lot of you guys have seen my progression with that and see what the fuss is all about for myself. I'm also, again, blown away with his hunting schedule. I mean, the amount of hunts this guy participates in is unreal. We talk about that a little bit in the podcast, and how he does it and the adventures he takes part in will definitely inspire you to tap back into your primal roots. So sit back, enjoy, take some notes, and enjoy this conversation with me and Adam. Adam, what's up, brother? I am glad that you are joining us on the show today.
It's so awesome to be on here, dude. We have been trying to do this for, it must be 8 months now.
Well, you're a busy man. You're always traveling around the world, so.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's just hectic, but I'm stoked to finally be sitting here in front of this pretty stupid computer screen and talking to you.
Well, and it was good to be able to meet up too and put a face with a name when we met up in Salt Lake, a couple of weeks ago for the Western Expo. It was really cool. My boys, I told you, my boys had a great time. Loved meeting you, loved meeting Cam, all the guys. It was a cool experience for them.
Yeah, same here, dude. It was just awesome to see you guys. I think we must have first seen each other at the 5K run. Cam Haynes' 5K run. Yeah, and I was stoked to see you guys rock up there and participate in the run and everything like that. So it was cool. And just meeting your boys, you know, I'm a family man as well. So it was awesome to meet your kids as well.
It was rough on that 5K because my oldest son, he started off really good and he did really well at first. I'm like, oh, this is going to go good. My second son really struggled to begin with. Like, he didn't want to do it. He was complaining. I'm like, come on, dude, and I had to push him along. And we got about halfway through that thing and my oldest burned out. So he started dragging and my second caught a second wind and started to take off. So trying to like balance between the two boys was a challenge, but it was still fun.
It was tough. Me and Kim went in the run and like we live at sea level, dude. We got there and I felt like I had like half a lung, but I was just really proud of my wife. She ran through the whole thing, so I was just stoked to see her do that. But no, it was
I didn't
cool.
even see her there. I didn't know she was there with you.
Yeah, Kimmy did it. She did the whole run. She'd had a couple of late nights and everything like that. And plus we're just trying to adjust to the timeline difference. But no, it was cool. We got it done, and it was just a ball. And like I was saying just before the podcast started, like so many like-minded people, you know, all in one spot. Yeah, it was just an unreal atmosphere, dude. I loved it.
Yeah, very cool. So does she hunt with you? Does she go everywhere you go and hunt with you?
Yeah, I think the first 15 or 16 years together, she just listened to all my romantic bow hunting stories, and it finally wore off on her, and she started hunting a couple of years ago and she got her first buck last year during the rut.
Oh yeah,
it's been really good. She's had a really good experience and she's come a long way in the last couple of years, and our rut's actually just about to kick in for our fallow deer and our red stag, so she's getting all G'd up and wanting to go out, so no, it'd be cool.
That's awesome. What have you learned in sharing with her how to hunt and teaching her the skill set that you've developed? How long have you been hunting? Have you been hunting your whole life?
Yeah, with a bow. I don't sort of call the years with a rifle hunting because it was more like vermin control here in Australia. There's obviously a lot of introduced pest species that are really bad for the ecosystem, and, you know, it was more just culling than hunting. But when I got a bow when I was 17 years old, it drastically changed into hunting, you know, spotting and stalking and just a whole bunch of romance that comes behind that and passion as well, rather than just going out with a gun and, you know, pretty much bombing up on these feral introduced species. So what am I? I think I'm 37 or 38 now. So I've had a good 20 years bow hunting. So yeah, it's been an awesome journey, and I'm still learning today, dude. That's what I keep telling people. I still haven't mastered it. 20 years of just being a hardcore bow hunter, and I still get surprised by the way deer react or what they do. So it's been pretty crazy.
Is that the most rewarding part for you? Just the fact that there's more to it? I imagine, once you learn all that's needed to be learned about a particular skill, it could get boring and tiresome in a way, but I can't see that with bow hunting.
There's a couple of things that in the past that I've done that I could say that I've mastered. And it's like once you master something, it actually gets boring, because it becomes easy. It becomes like second nature. And I know some guys that are in their 60s and 70s, bow hunters here in Australia, that say the same thing. They're still getting a lot of enjoyment out of it because you never really master it. There's just so much to it, it's ridiculous, I think it was only 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I got in on this really big buck. I put some photos up on Instagram, this beautiful big, the colour's called meanle fellow buck, and they're like spotty and stuff like that. And I got right in on him like 14 yards away. And I'm
really?
Oh, dude, no, I already had this thing in the freezer, I'm like, this thing is dead. Anyway, I'm at full draw on this buck, and usually I shoot low because fellow deer react really fast, like an axis deer. Anyone that's ever hunted axis deer, they use the tigers chasing them around. They just drop. So I usually aim for the heart, and they drop every time. I usually hit them about double lungs, aiming for the heart. Anyway, this thing's really relaxed, and its head's down in the grass. And, like I said, I'm at full draw and everything's calm. And I'm like, yeah, this thing's dead. And then a buck behind him notices me, and just a slight reaction, but every deer reads that reaction, even though he's got his head down and feed, and every deer knows the sound of that reaction. So he was now fully alert, and I rushed the shot off thinking, I've got him. And this thing dropped straight under the arrow, dude. And I'm like heartbroken. It's like, how can they do that? It's like full Matrix, And that's what I mean. Then there's that, I just stuffed one up. I just missed it. And as bad as that feels, that's what keeps me hooked, because, then comes the passion that, oh, far out, I just want one so bad, like I just screwed that up. How could I do that, So it's like that down of bow hunting, that bit that pushes you down and just tells you you know better than the dirt, nothing's a given. And that's what I really love about bow hunting. Nothing's a given. It's not to hate on rifle hunters at all, but that's something that I got out of rifle shooting. It seems like the hunt's over a lot quicker than still having to get right in the range with a bow and make the absolute perfect shot and drop that animal, and that's why I think I'm very addicted to bow hunting.
What would you have done differently in that scenario looking back on it now?
If I aim for the heart, if I had those couple of seconds longer to aim for the heart, then I would have probably hit him double lungs or through the top of the lungs and dropped him. But if we went out, if we killed something, every time it just wouldn't be the same thing. I think I hate failing, but I love failing in something because it keeps me going at it. And that's what bow hunting is in a nutshell for me. It's a tough journey that's got a reward at the end of it if you keep putting the effort in.
How has it changed since you started teaching other people? I mean, you're teaching your wife over the last couple of years. Obviously, there's hundreds of thousands of people that are learning from you. Has it changed for you since then?
Not really. I'm just doing what I do. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's bow hunting or woodwork or just anything in general. I like passing knowledge on, especially to my loved ones, but to anyone that wants to give me the time of day to learn. I just love pushing that knowledge on. And I used to always say, I hate the thought of people not realizing what's out there. I worked on a massive construction site when I was 18 or 19 years old. And I worked on this big construction site, and I was one of the youngest guys on the site. I used to always promote bow hunting. Just back then I used to take the hunting magazines into the lunch rooms and stuff like that. And I got a couple of guys into bow hunting at that point that were in their late 40s, early 50s. And they never even knew it existed. It's a very different thing here in Australia. It's just not really promoted like that. But these guys didn't even know it existed. And I always say, I wish I got into bow hunting at an early age, and I got into it at 17, and I've got regret that I didn't discover it earlier. Well, these guys were just like we never knew this existed. I just wish that we knew about hunting with a bow and arrow earlier. And, everything that flows on with that, like getting meat, providing for your own family, and it's fresh and it's very fresh and organic meat. The adventure that goes with it, like these guys weren't really regular campers or hikers or anything like that. Well, all that goes in with bow hunting because, as you know, if you're spot and stalk, you need to cover a lot of country. You need to get into the back country where you probably have to camp. So all those experiences came with it, and I just hate the idea that there's a bunch of people out there that don't know how good that experience is.
Yeah.
And I think the world's a little bit lost there, not knowing that's out there.
Well, I think there's definitely a connection there, and obviously our ability to connect with nature is huge, and we've got away from it as we've built these mega cities and we've got technology, and nothing against those things. All of that stuff's wonderful, but it's isolated us from nature and from adventure. And in following you for, I don't know, the last year or so, I've seen from your perspective, that's something that you really enjoy is that adventurous side of things. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's an absolute beautiful thing, and so I've seen Kim's a very city girl. I've seen her go from being that very city girl to a real, we call it a bushy here, but like a real country girl. The appreciation that she's got out of that for nature and for all the good little things that we've got in life in modern technology and stuff like that, I see that she appreciates that a lot more. It's so easy to overlook, how amazing that is when you just don't realize it's there. And that's what the city does, and like what a 9-to-5 job does. It's pulled you away from that. And I don't know, it's just like out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people. And so everything that I do, I don't think anything that I do is special at all. It is what it is. And I get all these crazy messages from people saying, that's amazing that you just go out and camp under the stars like that. And no, that's just normal. We're all doing that at one stage. This is nothing out of the ordinary. It's just that the city has taken that away.
Yeah, it really has. Is there a hunt in particular, and I'm sure you've been on hundreds, if not thousands of hunts, but is there a hunt in particular that you thought, man, this one is like tops the list for being the most adventurous?
Not really. Like everyone always freaks out about the solo hunts and stuff that I do. And so that's usually where like the backcountry in Montana comes into play. But here in Australia, it's really wild country. Like you're walking around out there and you've got that feeling that no one's even ever walked this same path that you're taking, it's just so remote. Like, dude, you could die out there and no one would find you. That's the sort of remoteness it is, it's crazy to think, but Indigenous Australians have walked it forever. The truth is you're not the first person to walk it. Indigenous Australians have walked all over it. But now with a lot of Indigenous Australians also living in cities and towns and communities, you walk through there and at that point you sort of are the only guy, only person that's walking that country. So I'd have to say Arnhem Land, Australia, it's just, the place is full of dinosaurs, dude. There's massive big saltwater crocs swimming in the water holes up there and just big buffalo. It's just,
yeah, I've seen some of the stuff you've posted. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. What does your level of preparation look like? I've talked with John Dudley. He talks a lot about the way he shot, Cam, obviously, and the way that he shots, and he's out every day, and we all see what he does in the gym. What does that look like for you?
So the beauty of Australia is there's virtually no hunting seasons. Like all my hunting's open all year round. There's no tags or anything like that because, as I said, they're all introduced species. They're all invasive species. So I can literally hunt all year round, and I pretty much do. And I don't really find a gap there where I'm like, oh, I need to hit the gym or I need to do a bit of cardio and stuff like that. Because like before I come to Montana or the backcountry there in North America, I've already done a bunch of hunts leading up to it. That I sort of get there and I'm sort of like trotting up the mountain, dude, with a big backpack on. I'm like, the only thing that really affects me is the elevation because, everywhere in Australia is the altitude. So everywhere here in Australia is pretty close to sea level. And I've just got a training mask here that Under Armour sent me over. And I usually do a little bit of running in that before I get to the high elevation. But it's funny, if I had the gap, I definitely would. Because I never want to struggle on the mountain or on a hunt, I definitely would. But my preparation is literally just the hunt beforehand, and it's the same with shooting. Like if I'm at the cabin or if I'm in camp, I'm literally practicing shooting why I'm at the destination that I want to be, because we just take a target butt in the camp or whatnot and have a bunch of shots, make sure the bow's shooting well, make sure nothing's been bumped or anything like that. And I don't change anything, dude. I shoot the same arrow setup from a rabbit to a massive water buffalo. I don't change anything. And people think like that's crazy, like it's overkill. It's like 600 grains of arrow, but I don't have to ever change my sights. There's nothing that can go wrong there, like, oh, shit, I was shooting the wrong grain broadhead. That's why my arrow's off. It's just the same setup for everything I shoot.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just simplified the process, right? And then you don't have to worry about all these little nuances that could and potentially will go wrong.
Yeah,
right?
That's right, yeah. So I was talking to the guys at Hoyt, and the president of Hoyt there, he's about to go on a Cape buffalo hunt, and he was talking about the sort of setup that I use for my buffalo. And I'm just like, you can't go wrong with this setup. Like, it's a good, solid setup. Like, I'll literally shoot buffalo, and like buffalo are like 2 times wider than a 29-inch shaft, dude. And that arrow will completely pass through and leave the buffalo. You'll be on the other side of where you shot the buffalo looking for your arrow. So
Really?
It's just like, yeah. And I also tell a story about a big red deer that I shot. This stag, I called him off and he come running down to like 9 yards. And he was like half shying away. He didn't quite know what I was, and I was looking for the right angle. And I thought I could get the shaft in this pocket here in a soft spot and up into the chest and probably through the top of the heart. And as I shot, like, they just react so fast. If they're slightly aware, he sort of dropped, rolled, and come down like that. And it was a horrible shot. I was using that solid arrow setup that I was talking about with a solid 2-blade broadhead, and it's just like one piece of steel that's broadhead C machined through one piece of steel. And so that went through the heart, and I just dropped this big stag on the spot. And right then and there, I said to myself, I'm never going to change that setup, because that could have been a fatally wounded animal that I may never have found, or I would have broken the arm on this side and he would have just been wounded and had to live, I don't know how many years with a wounded leg like that. So I thought, I'm not going to change that setup for anything. And I've shot it the whole time. There's been a couple more cases where I'm just like, if I shot anything else, a 3-blade, expandable, or mechanical, that broadhead just would have damaged. It wouldn't be a nice situation to be thinking about or try and live with. So, yeah, I've stuck with that setup for everything.
Gentlemen, 5 more spots remaining for our 3rd annual Uprising event held on May 3rd through the 6th, 2018. We just locked in a Navy SEAL to teach us basic firearm training. We've got some incredible instructors to teach us some mixed martial arts, 2 experts on the subject of survival training, so much more going on here. So if you're a man and you're ready to take your life to the next level, that's exactly what we're doing over a period of 3.5 days in the mountains of southern Utah. We've got physical challenges, mental challenges, emotional challenges, and all of these things, guys, are designed to give you a new benchmark for the way in which you operate in your life. So you're going to walk away with new perspectives to accelerate your growth, some new friends to keep you accountable, and some experiences that you will never forget. Again, we've only got 5 spots left. So if you are going to register, it's getting down to the wire. Do it very, very quickly at orderofman.com/uprising. Again, that's orderofman.com/uprising. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email at ryan@orderofman.com. I hope to see you there. Now, let's finish up this conversation with Adam. I'm always amazed at, just from being new in the hunting world, I'm amazed at the ethical standards of hunters. I mean, you're talking about it right now. You're talking about wounding an animal and that living with you. And I think there's this really interesting perspective from the outside world who's never been hunting that, you're beady-eyed killers, right? And you're just enjoying the kill itself. And it's not like that at all. I mean, how do you address this pushback and this negativity that I'm sure that you just get in droves?
Yeah. So one thing is, being a hunter has actually made me more passionate about animals and more passionate about being humane and more aware of where your meat comes from and the process that it goes through. And there's been a couple of animals that I've killed now that I've actually shed a tear over, dude, because I am so passionate about wildlife. No, I haven't shed a tear because I'm like, this is the wrong thing to do. I've shed a tear knowing that this meat comes from. It's okay to do this, but it's still an animal's life, and I still feel, and I'm very passionate about it. where the argument comes from and where most of my hate mail comes from is just ignorance. Someone that's eating a burger at McDonald's or feeding their cat a tin of whatever animal product, but they want to have a go at me because the meat's not sitting in a packet, like a pretty packet like this with some fluffy animal picture on it, and it just says the weight of the meat and how much it is. That's fine, but me being with the animal and showing the animal respect, and people don't like it. It's so weird that they're like that. Most of them I just ignore. Like, I pick my battles. I see someone that just doesn't understand, and I see someone that's just pure ignorant and they're never, ever going to understand, and they just want to talk some shit online, you know. But in saying that, I actually haven't been getting a ton of hate mail. It's actually been so much positive messages from vegans or ex-vegans or animal rights people and ex-animal rights people. It's like there's definitely a movement. There's been a change now with particularly the way that like Joe Rogan's pushed it across the board, and like guys like you talk about, like Cameron Haynes, and there's just a ton of awesome ambassadors out there at the moment that are pushing what the majority of real hunters are like, you know, and that's what we were talking about, just people that are very respectful over the animals that they hunt, you know, and just, I really want to be humane, and it's almost selfish because I don't want to feel like what we're saying just then. I don't want to feel that guilt and bad for wounding an animal, so I make sure I go to every effort as possible to make sure my setup is perfect, dude, to make sure I get within my effective range, to make sure I know the vitals of an animal, you know, to make sure it's just a quick, clean kill. And the animals that I shoot with a bow, like, oh, I'm hurt. They're not running. They're just running out of, that's their instinct to run. You know, most of these animals actually don't feel pain. They just run out of instinct, like, what was that? And then I've even had them, dude, they run out so far, they're really relaxed, and they're like looking back like, what was that? And then they fall over dead, you know, like, that's perfect. That's beautiful. And that's what we strive for as hunters.
I do believe that there is kind of this new resurgence or awakening, if you will, to people and the hunting industry in general. I think about like conservation efforts, and that's one thing that I think is really misunderstood, that some of these animals, frankly, they're going to die anyways, or they're going to create other problems. You talk about, for example, some of these species being introduced and them causing problems. And I really think that that like the biggest conservationists seem to be hunters from my perspective. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. There's a reason why it's legal. There's a reason why there's a tag for those animals. In the American system, there's not a tag there so we can wipe them out. There's a tag there because there's a great enough number of them that to keep them healthy and populated, and for money to go into conservation, they tag, and then you can legally go out and hunt that animal. In Australia, there's a reason why it's legal to hunt those animals, because they're invasive and they're wiping out other species. So they're wiping out fauna and flora. So we need to decrease these animals. We're never going to get rid of them in Australia. It's too late for that. They're everywhere. They're spread everywhere. But now we need to work as hard as we can to control the population. And it's proven that hunting is a massive factor in decreasing those populations. A hell of a lot more that goes with that. Like, we can just say conservation. Like, that's already big enough. That's already great. It's already a good enough reason to do it. But it also supports all these little towns where hunting is based. So people driving there and getting accommodation, food, fuel. There's jobs that come out of it. It's never ending. It's just huge. You know, the benefits of hunting are just huge. I know there's towns that if they didn't have a duck season, those towns would not exist. There would not be jobs there for people, you know. So there's a lot to it. And this is sort of backpedaling a little bit. Like, say I shoot a wild pig in Australia, and someone wants to give me shit about that. Like, you know, why can't you just let the animals live? But those pigs are wiping animals off the planet. Like, they've already done it. They've pushed ground nesting birds, a bunch of ground nesting birds, frogs and lizards and all sorts of creatures already to extinction. They're never coming back. We're never going to see those animals again. But people don't have a problem with the pig being there and wiping out animals and killing animals, but they've got an issue with hunters going and hunting the pigs. It's so weird. Like, I just can't.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I'm just like, is it just my mind that's that free that I can see this? I'm saying it because I'm a hunter. I'm saying it because I've got an open mind. I hunt because I've got an open mind. I don't hunt just because I'm a hunter, and I don't justify things because I'm a hunter. I'm just not that sort of person. If something wouldn't be correct to hunt or right to hunt, I just wouldn't hunt it.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point. I think it does have to do with being open-minded and being closed-minded. Like some people, genuinely, they only want to see one side. And so they'll never take the time or the energy to go in and explore what's actually happening, why hunters are so involved, how hunters actually behave. And almost what's sad about that is these people with these closed minds, sometimes it seems like they tend to be the loudest people too, right? So when somebody doesn't know, they're automatically assuming that these people with closed minds are accurate and this is correct. And I think that's kind of the travesty.
Yeah. I'll still look at an animal and go, look, there's a tag for it and it's legal to hunt, but I'll still do my research, especially when I'm traveling overseas and I don't have the whole picture. I'll still do my research to make sure that that's the right thing to do. It's funny, me and Cam talk about it a bit. There'll be 200 positive comments and you'll read through them and appreciate them, like I appreciate them, but there's only that one negative comment. And it is the loudest, which is weird.
And it's the one, like, I tend to respond to that one as opposed to the other 100 that are good.
Yeah, I've tried to stop that because I'm not Cam will be nice, whereas I'll tell him to go and fuck off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not get worked up. That's just how I talk. But yeah, it is funny that always seems to be the loudest one, It's also funny, I've never felt the need to go on to any forum or anyone else's Instagram with anything. There's plenty of things that I don't agree with. I've never felt the need to go and write that to that person. Like, it's just, like, don't you have better things to do in your day? Like, please, no one's going to quit hunting because of your one negative. That's never happened in the history of mankind. No one has ever been, you know what, I'm not going to hunt anymore. They're right.
They're right.
That's never happened.
Well, there's this really interesting button that's new, I guess, that people haven't seen. It's called the unfollow button, right? So, like, if you are following someone that you don't agree with, just click that little button, and then you don't have to see any of their stuff anymore. It's amazing.
And it'll be better for them. They'll have a better day, a happier day, and so will whoever they're negatively commenting to.
What are some of these species that have been introduced into Australia that you're talking about?
So there's 27 huntable species here in Australia, and every single one of those is introduced. The biggest ones would be like water buffalo. They came from Asia. There's a couple of islands off Australia that have got Marion turkeys on them, so they've been introduced. Then you've foxes, rabbits, jackrabbits, pigs, goats, 6 species of deer. So we've got fallow deer, red deer, we've got rooster deer, chital deer, or you guys usually call them axis deer, sambar deer, and hog deer. There's camels, there's donkeys, there's some real weird ones there. There's feral.
Really?
So like the house is so overrun and wild here in Australia that I think it's single-handedly killed off more species, like sent into extinction, more species of wildlife than any other animal.
Did you say cats? It cut out right when you said that.
Yeah, cats. Yeah. So your domestic cat has gone wild and feral in the bush. So Australia had no predators, dude. So the birds would nest on the ground. There's no instincts built in.
Right. Nothing's hunting.
Exactly.
Them.
So all these ground nesting birds are just obliviated. And frogs and lizards, and it's just stuff that's not used to it. And cats aren't killing to eat, like they do that as well. But cats and like foxes and our wild dog population, they thrill kill. So they'll go through and just, they just kill, move on to the next one, kill, move on to the next one. And the other thing is, when there's an abundance of wildlife that they can get to, they'll be really selective eaters. One of the landowners, and this is talking about domesticated animals now, but one of the landowners that I know, their lamb population kept dropping down. The first year, I think they noticed a drop and they only had like 70% of their lambs for the year. And then the next year it dropped and they only had like 40%, like a massive drop. Then last year, dude, they got 0 lambs. Zero lambs, and it was this wild dog population, and the wild dogs were just going around and killing all the lambs during lambing season. They were becoming really selective eaters at that time, and they were literally just eating a little bit of chest cavity out of the lambs and eating the organs and moving on to the next lamb. And they wiped their whole income out, dude. Like,
my goodness.
Just insane. imagine that's just what they're monitoring is their lambs, because that's what they make money out of. These wild dogs are also going around and killing wallabies and wombats and echidnas and all of Australia's natives that they can get to. They're also killing them. Then I post a photo of a wild dog and like everyone loses their fucking mind. It's like, are you kidding me? That's an innocent wild dog. Yeah, and that innocent wild dog is killing innocent animals. It needs to be controlled. It doesn't belong here. It's not good. We've done our research and it's not good for our ecosystem that these wild dogs are running around uncontrolled.
It's the same with bears and Canada's new initiative with hunting and bears. Wolves are very much the same way. We have coyotes around here. They're not a huge problem, but they've killed one of our turkeys. They've got into our chickens. So yeah, I mean, this is a legitimate problem for sure.
And it's only going to get worse unless we control it, unless we keep coming around. It's only going to get worse. And what makes that worse is cities are getting bigger. People are getting more closed off to what actually happens out there in the wild. A part of me just says, just do what you do and stop worrying about battling the masses and defending it and stuff like that. But another part of me says, no, just keep trying to educate. This year's actually been that big battle where I'm just like, I'm sick of defending the sport. I've been doing it for 20 years. Like ever since I started bow hunting, I started writing articles, and if I could get a word in on newspapers and stuff when something negative was coming out about bow hunting or hunting, I'd try and do it. You know, social media is perfect because it's immediate. You know, you can put the word out there immediately. And yeah, I try and educate through that as well. But at the same time, I'm just fighting the same battle I have been for like 20 years. And I don't give up on anything, but a little bit of it just says, just do your thing. Enjoy it. Stop trying to defend it.
I do believe there is an obligation, to your point, that I mean, for the next generation of hunters, or whether it's hunting or another battle that you're choosing, like I do believe we have an obligation to fight for those things that are important to us so other people can enjoy that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think a big part of it is just that I understand it so much that it's just like, this is normal. Why can't everyone else understand it? But, but you know, like I said, you go into one of these big cities and stuff like that. And I sort of live the two lives as well, you know, like I'm in the city a bit and I'm then right out in the wilds, you know, and you can see how people can be closed off from this. A lot of people, all they know is that city, their city and their life, and that's how it's supposed to be. Yeah, you just got to keep an open mind.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask you about photography because in your Instagram profile, obviously photography is something that's important to you. I mean, you can tell in the quality of the pictures and the work that you're putting out there. Did that just come of necessity and being out there and wanting to take pictures and share what you're doing? Or has this been a hobby you've had for a long time?
It's sort of been a hobby that I've had for a long time. Like I remember just going out camping and fishing, or it's hard for me to remember a lot of things and you're always busy. And I found if I had a photo of whatever the experience was, whatever that was, to look back on that photo was like the memory straight away. Like, oh, yeah, that's right. You know, we were down there camping, or, you know, yeah, that was a beautiful night, or whatever it was. And they were just pretty average photos that I used to take for a lot of years because it was just about capturing that memory for myself and my close friends. In a way, it was about promoting the outdoors and what I do, and a photo could do so much better of that and me telling like you could have a big article that I wrote, you know, and it was like glorious and it's nice to get all the facts. Well, then you could just show someone a photo and let their own mind run wild with that photo. And then once I got into writing more articles and the quality of photos had to be a lot better, I think it just was a natural progression, you know, that's how it went along. And then to the point now where it is, I want the photo to just represent what I'm looking at myself. And sometimes a photo never does that, dude. It doesn't matter how good you are. I'll look back on the photo, I'm like, man, that day was so much better than that photo. What the image that I was seeing with my eyes was so much better, you know. And even film doesn't really capture that a lot of the times. And the film will be glorious. It will look unreal. I'm like, it was still better than that, you know. Some things you've just got to live for yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I think about that. You know, you take a picture of a cool sunset or you see the moon and it's huge in the sky and then you take a picture. You're like, wait, that's not what it actually looks like. And so
Yeah.
I like that point that you made of like some things you've just got to experience for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, we're winding down on time, man. This has been a great conversation, and I've been looking forward to just having this conversation. Obviously, I respect you, appreciate what you do, and I think you're a great advocate for hunting in general, which is something, admittedly, I'm just getting into, but I'm really, really enjoying it. As we wind down, I do want to ask you a couple additional questions. The first one is, what does it mean to be a man?
For me, being a man, and I know it's called Order of Man, but I just think human, dude. To be a human, it's just about being good, and thinking about like how you feel, so how would others feel, and love and appreciation for everything we've got. Because some people will never have the things that just me and you got, dude. Family, dude. Some people will never have kids, so love and appreciate that. I just love people smiling and being happy around me, dude. If everyone around me is happy and smiling, then I'm like happy and smiling, So I just think just being a good person and going all out, dude. Like, you don't know what tomorrow brings. I don't know what tomorrow brings. I could be dead tomorrow. Might as well be good today. I might as well have people happy around me today. So that's what it means to be a man, a human. Yeah.
A human. Yeah, very cool. I like it, man. Well, how do we connect with you? What's the best way to link up with what you're doing?
Probably, I put most of my time and effort in the Instagram these days. So it's just Adam.Greentree on Instagram. And if you don't like the hunting side of things, and hunting ain't for everyone, I can respect that. Then first.man.image is just my photography page. Usually everywhere I go, I just sort of take stuff that's not so much hunting related. It's just the outdoors or the stars or a cabin or my wife, whatever it is, So yeah, it's cool.
Awesome. We'll link it all up. Well, I wanted to tell you, my boys, and you know what I've found is that kids are a really good indicator of another human being because they're raw, right? They'll tell you exactly what they see, exactly what they feel. And my boys were so excited to meet you. They're like, I really like Adam. The only hang up my oldest son had, and I was going to tell you this, is he said, Dad, he said, damn. Because I guess what you said is you're like, these are damn fine looking kids or something like that when you had met him. And that was his only hang up. But man, other than that, and he's like that, but other than that, man, they loved meeting you. And I can tell that if the boys have a good time around you, and certainly they were smiling and having a good time, then that speaks highly of you. But in the limited interaction that we've had, man, I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit better. I'm enjoying, hopefully, to get to know you a little bit more than that. But man, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you parting some of your wisdom with us, and looking forward to doing this again, man.
No, awesome, dude. I love it. And it's been a pleasure to be on. And I'm glad we finally hooked up.
Gentlemen, there you go. My conversation with Mr. Adam Greentree. Again, I know the audio was a little bit off, but there was so much value in this episode. If you took that information in and you really tried to understand what he was sharing, the life of adventure, conservation efforts, all of the things, the skills, the mastery that goes into the process of being a successful bow hunter. And I really enjoyed the show. I hope you did as well. Guys, if you would, make sure that you connect with him. He spends a lot of time on Instagram. I'm there as well. Facebook, Twitter. I mean, you name it. You can track us down. You can find us. But give us a shout out. Let us know what you liked about the show. Let us know what you're going to implement. If you're going on any hunts anytime soon, please let me know. I've got one coming up in 2 to 3 weeks, like I mentioned earlier. So you guys will be seeing some pictures on that from me. But a really great conversation. Again, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Now, a couple of quick announcements as we wind things down. Again, just a reminder on the Uprising, 5 more spots left. So if you're on the fence, you're thinking about it, you don't really know if it's for you, whatever it may be, go check it out, orderofman.com/uprising. Or if you want, just send me an email, ryan@orderofman.com. With your question, I'll be able to answer any questions within reason, of course. We don't get too much into the specifics because that element of surprise is very, very important in the process itself. But feel free to shoot me an email and let me know what questions you have. Again, 5 spots left, so get on that quick. With that, guys, I am going to check out for today. I appreciate you being on this journey to reclaiming masculinity with me. You're going to hear from us tomorrow, specifically Bubba Downs on In the Trenches, and then you'll hear from me on Friday for Friday Field Notes. But until then, take action and become the man you are meant to be.
Thank you for listening to the Order of Man podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and be more of the man you were meant to be, we invite you to join the Order at orderofman.com.